Something is happening at your grocery store right now, and most people have absolutely no idea. The packages look the same, the prices look the same, but what's inside has quietly gotten smaller, and what's coming next is going to catch a lot of families completely off guard. I've been tracking this for months. I've been checking receipts, comparing old packaging to new packaging, and talking to people who work in food distribution and retail. What I found is not random. There's a clear pattern here, and it's accelerating. Today, I'm going to walk you through 13 groceries that are shrinking fast in 2026, and why you should be buying more of them right now before the next round of price increases hit. And listen, number 7 on this list genuinely stopped me in my tracks when I looked it up. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but when we get there, I think you're going to feel the same way I did. If you find this useful, hit subscribe right now. I put out videos like this every week, and it takes 2 seconds. Now let's get into it. Item number 1, canned tomatoes. This one sounds boring. I know, but canned tomatoes might be the single most quietly important pantry item you could be stocking right now, and almost nobody is treating them that way. Here's what's happening. Tomato harvests in California, which supplies a massive share of canned tomatoes for the American market, have been under pressure for 3 years in a row. Heat stress during critical growing windows, tighter water access, and rising labor costs have all pushed production down. Meanwhile, food manufacturers have been quietly reformulating sauces, soups, and prepared foods to use less tomato solids, which means they're keeping more raw material for themselves and passing less on to the retail side. Industry reports from late 2025 showed canned tomato inventories at some of the lowest levels seen in over a decade going into the new year. Wholesale prices for tomato paste and diced tomatoes moved up sharply, and that movement always finds its way to store shelves eventually. When I started paying attention to this last fall, I noticed that the store brand 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes at my local Walmart had gone up twice in about 8 months. The name brand options, Hunt's, Muir Glen, Red Gold, were all in the same pattern. Small increases, close together. I talked to someone who manages inventory for a regional grocery chain, and he told me that canned tomatoes are one of the categories where they're seeing the most pressure from suppliers asking to renegotiate contracts. That's not a good sign for shoppers. My honest advice is to buy a case. Whether it's from Costco, from Sam's Club, or even just grabbing 6 or 8 cans at a time when you see a sale. Whole canned tomatoes, diced, crushed, paste, all of it has a 2-year shelf life minimum. You will use it. This is not an item that will sit in your pantry forever going to waste. You don't want to be the person standing in the pasta aisle in October wondering why a single can of crushed tomatoes costs what a full meal used to cost. Item number 2, dry pasta. Stay with me on pasta because this connects directly to what I just told you about tomatoes, and it goes further. Semolina wheat, which is what most quality dry pasta is made from, has had a rough 2 years in global markets. North African and European harvests, which the U.S. imports a significant portion of for durum wheat, came in below expectations in 2024 and 2025. Barilla, Ronzoni, DeCecco, all of them source globally, and all of them have been absorbing input cost increases that they've only partially passed on so far. The reason pasta stayed affordable for so long is that manufacturers held the line, hoping commodity prices would ease. They didn't ease meaningfully enough. The industry is reaching a breaking point on margins. I looked at pasta prices across 5 different stores in my area over the last 6 months, and the trajectory is clear. We're talking about a category that went from a reliable dollar per pound range to consistently pushing past $1.50, and in some cases closer to $2 per pound for standard cuts. I noticed this personally because pasta is something my family goes through constantly. I used to grab a couple boxes at a time without thinking. Now I grab 8 or 10 when I see a good price. The 1-pound box is becoming almost irrelevant at Costco. The 5-pound bags are where the value is. If you have a dry, cool pantry space, a basement shelf, a dedicated cupboard, anything like that, dry pasta stores for 2 to 3 years without any degradation in quality. Load up on penne, spaghetti, rigatoni. The shapes you actually cook with. Don't just grab what looks good in the moment. Protecting your food budget means buying staples on your schedule, not the store's schedule. Item number 3. Olive oil. I have to be honest with you. I put off including this one because it almost felt too obvious. But it's not obvious enough because people are still not buying ahead on olive oil and the situation has not improved. The olive oil crisis that started making headlines in 2023 and 2024 did not resolve itself cleanly. Spanish and Italian harvests, which together supply the majority of the world's olive oil, had another difficult cycle in 2025. The trees are stressed. It takes years for olive trees to recover from extreme heat and drought conditions, and we're seeing the cumulative effects of that now. What changed in early 2026 is that retailers who had been holding prices steady to avoid customer backlash are now starting to let the increases roll through. You're going to see this on shelves across the board. Kirkland brand at Costco has historically been one of the best values in the country for olive oil. Even that benchmark has moved. When I checked prices in February and then again in April, the delta was noticeable. A 67-ounce tin that I use as my baseline reference point had moved up about 14% in that window. That's not a rounding error. That's a real change. Olive oil keeps well. Properly stored, cool, dark, away from the stove, you're looking at 18 months to 2 years from the production date. If you cook with it regularly, buying 2 or 3 large containers when you find a decent price is not hoarding. That's just smart household management. Check warehouse clubs first. Then check international grocery stores in your area. Mediterranean markets, Middle Eastern grocery stores, where the turnover is high and the sourcing is sometimes better. Your wallet is going to thank you for being ahead of this one. Item number 4. Eggs. You already know eggs have been volatile, but I want to tell you something that most people are missing about where eggs go from here. The bird flu situation that devastated commercial flocks in 2022 and 2023 came back in a significant way in late 2024 into 2025. Tens of millions of commercial laying hens were lost across multiple outbreak cycles. Rebuilding a commercial flock takes time, typically 12 to 14 months from hatching to laying, and the industry has been in a constant state of trying to catch up. What I'm watching now is the regional disparity. Some parts of the country have stabilized, others have not. And the national average price for a dozen large eggs in early 2026 is still elevated compared to any pre-2022 baseline we'd consider normal. I looked this up carefully because I wanted to understand if we were in a recovery or if this was the new floor. What the production data suggests is that we're at a new floor with ongoing volatility risk. The industry has thinned out. Smaller producers exited, larger operations have higher fixed costs, and insurance for laying operations is more expensive than it used to be. When I see eggs go on sale, I buy 3 or 4 dozen now. I never did that before. But eggs in the refrigerator last 3 to 5 weeks easily, and you can freeze cracked eggs in an airtight container if you really want to extend your supply. Also worth knowing, liquid egg products, the kind in the carton, pasteurized, freeze beautifully and keep for up to a year in the freezer. This is something restaurant and food service people have known forever. It's not common knowledge at the household level, and it should be. This is about protecting your family's budget from swings that are outside your control. Item number 5. Butter deserves its own moment here, because what's happening to butter prices in 2026 is not getting nearly enough attention. Dairy fat has become an in-demand global commodity in a way that it wasn't even 10 years ago. As international markets, particularly in Asia, expanded their consumption of butter and dairy-based products, and as American food manufacturers leaned further into full-fat formulations after the low-fat era wound down, demand for butterfat has structurally increased. At the same time, American dairy herd numbers have been contracting. It's not a dramatic collapse, it's a slow, steady reduction, as smaller dairy farms exit the business and the economics of milk production remain challenging. Fewer cows producing milk, stronger domestic and international demand for butterfat. That equation points in one direction. I noticed this shift about 18 months ago when I started seeing butter on sale less frequently than I used to. The 2-for-1 deals and the weekend specials started getting thinner, and the store brand butter that used to sit comfortably below name brand options started creeping up to close the gap. Land O'Lakes, Kerrygold, store brands at Kroger and Publix and Safeway, all of it has moved and the trajectory isn't reversing. Butter freezes perfectly for up to 12 months in its original packaging. Put it in a Ziploc bag for extra protection, and you're good. When you see a sale, buy 5 or 10 pounds if you have freezer space. This is one of the highest value freezer stockpile moves you can make right now. You can also watch for post-holiday sales in January, and after Easter when butter was over-ordered for baking season. Those windows still come, and you should be ready to act. Item number 6. Coffee. Coffee has been under pressure for a while, but 2026 is shaping up to be a particularly difficult year for coffee prices, and I want to make sure you understand why. Brazil and Vietnam together produce the majority of the world's coffee. Brazil had a significant crop shortfall in 2024 due to drought conditions during the flowering stage, which affects output for the following harvest cycle. Vietnam has faced its own weather-related disruptions. Coffee futures have been elevated for over a year, and they haven't come back down in a meaningful way. What makes this especially significant for American shoppers is that roasters, Folgers, Maxwell House, Starbucks packaged coffee, private label brands, have already raised retail prices once, but the commodity price pressure they absorbed in late 2024 and early 2025 is still working its way through their cost structures. A second round of increases is not speculative. It's the likely outcome. I looked at the price of my usual 2-pound container of ground coffee over the last 12 months, and I've seen it move 3 separate times. Small amounts each time, but they compound. What used to be $8 is now closer to $11. What used to be $12 is now $15. If you have a dark, cool spot to store coffee, and you drink it regularly, whole bean keeps for up to 2 years vacuum sealed. Ground coffee is shorter, but still 6 months to a year in an airtight container. This is an easy one to buy ahead on. Warehouse clubs in particular have been a better value on coffee than traditional grocery. The turnover is faster, the packaging is larger, and you can actually see the roast date more clearly than you can on grocery store packaging. Don't wait until it hurts. Buy 2 or 3 months ahead on something you drink every single day. Item number 7. Canned chicken. Here it is. This is the one I told you about at the beginning, and I need you to really pay attention here because this is the item that genuinely surprised me when I dug into the numbers. Canned chicken has quietly become one of the most aggressive shrinkflation targets in the entire grocery store. And because people don't think about canned chicken the way they think about canned tuna, they don't watch it as closely, they don't comparison shop it as carefully. It's been happening right under everyone's noses. In 2019, a standard can of chunk chicken breast from most major brands was 12.5 ounces. Go look at those same cans today. You'll find many of them at 10 ounces. Some have gone to 9.5. Kirkland at Costco is still holding at 12.5, which is part of why Costco has been picking up market share in this category. But the grocery store options have quietly lost nearly 20% of their contents without most shoppers noticing. And the price per unit has gone up on top of the size going down, so you're paying more for significantly less. When I actually did the math, comparing what I paid per ounce in 2021 versus what the same shelf position costs me now, I was looking at a 40 to 50% effective price increase depending on the brand. I was buying Swanson canned chicken without really thinking about it for years. It's a pantry staple. Quick protein, easy lunches, simple dinners. It never occurred to me to check whether the can had gotten lighter. When I finally picked up an old receipt and compared it to a current package, I had one of those moments where I just sat there for a second. Here is what you should do. First, switch to Costco's Kirkland canned chicken if you have access to a Costco. The value gap versus grocery store options is wide and getting wider. Second, when you buy a case at a time. Canned chicken has a 3 to 5 year shelf life. There is absolutely no reason to buy it 1 can at a time at a grocery store at inflated prices. Third, check the ounce weight every single time. Do not assume it hasn't changed since last time. This is exactly the kind of thing food manufacturers count on, that you're moving too fast to notice. Don't move too fast. Item number 8. Frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are one of the most nutritious and economical food categories in the grocery store. They're also one of the categories where shrinkflation and price increases have been hitting hard and quietly. The standard bag of frozen vegetables, peas, broccoli, green beans, corn, mixed vegetables, used to be reliably sold in a 2-pound bag. Look at your freezer aisle today, and you'll find that the standard has migrated to 12 ounces. Some brands have gone to 10. The bag looks similar. The graphic design hasn't changed much, but there's meaningfully less food inside. Part of this is driven by energy costs. Freezing and cold chain logistics took a significant cost hit in 2022 and 2023, and those costs did not fully reverse. Part of it is labor. Harvesting for freezing is still largely manual for certain crops, and part of it is simply margin management. Frozen vegetables are a high-volume, low-price point category. When input costs rise, the easiest adjustment is to reduce fill weight rather than adjust the retail sticker. I did a simple test at home. I weighed 3 different bags of frozen broccoli from 3 different brands I had in my freezer. The weights on the bag said 12 ounces each. 2 of the 3 were slightly under by a small margin, within the legal tolerance range, but still, it made me pay more attention. When you see frozen vegetables on sale, especially at stores like Aldi, Lidl, Trader Joe's, or in the warehouse club format, buy more than you need for the week. Frozen vegetables are already frozen. Their shelf life in your freezer is 1 to 2 years without quality degradation. There's no meaningful downside to having a well-stocked frozen vegetable supply. This is about eating well and spending less at the same time. Those two things don't have to be in conflict. Item number 9. Canned tuna. Canned tuna is a protein staple that has been on a slow but steady price climb for several years, and 2026 is not going to reverse that trend. Global tuna fishing is under increasing regulatory pressure as conservation bodies have implemented tighter catch limits on skipjack and yellowfin species in key Pacific fishing zones. The global fleet that supplies brands like Starkist, Bumblebee, and Chicken of the Sea is operating under tighter quotas than at any point in the last 15 years. When supply is constrained at the source level, everything downstream adjusts. What's interesting about canned tuna is that the brands have used a combination of price increases and size reductions simultaneously. The classic 5-ounce can has been migrating toward 4.5 ounces in some product lines. At the same time, the price per unit has moved up. If you're buying tuna by the can and not paying attention to the ounce weight, you're effectively paying significantly more for the same meal than you were 3 years ago. I noticed this when I was packing lunches and realized I was going through cans faster than I used to. I initially thought we were just eating more tuna. Then I checked the label and compared it to an older receipt in my email and realized the can had gotten smaller. Pouches of tuna, interestingly, have held their size ratios better in some brands than the canned format has. Worth comparing. But when it comes to volume purchases, canned is still the better value per ounce if you shop at warehouse clubs. Starkist and Kirkland pouched tuna in bulk packs at Costco have been more stable than their retail grocery counterparts. Canned tuna lasts 3 to 5 years. This is one of the most space-efficient protein stockpiles you can build. Buy it when the price is right. Item number 10. Peanut butter. Peanut butter is one of those items where I think people have generally accepted that prices have gone up. But they might not realize how much further it still has to go. American peanut production is concentrated in a relatively small geographic area: Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Virginia. When drought or heat stress hits those regions during critical growing windows, it affects the entire domestic supply in ways that ripple through all peanut-based products. We've had 2 difficult peanut growing seasons in a row leading into 2026. At the same time, peanut butter has become a genuinely global commodity. Export demand, particularly from food aid programs and international markets that have adopted it as a protein source, competes with domestic supply in ways it didn't 20 years ago. The peanut butter on your shelf is competing for supply with the rest of the world, and that dynamic is not reversing. Jif, Skippy, Peter Pan, all of them have moved prices in the last 12 months, and the container sizes have quietly shifted as well. The standard 40-ounce jar is now frequently a 36-ounce jar at the same or higher price point on major brand options. I keep a consistent stock of at least 4 large jars of peanut butter in my pantry. Unopened peanut butter has a 12 to 18-month shelf life, and some natural varieties do just fine for longer when properly stored. This is one of the most calorie-dense, protein-rich, genuinely shelf-stable foods you can stockpile. Costco's Kirkland Natural Peanut Butter has become one of the better values in the warehouse space. 2 large jars, good quality, consistent supply. If that's accessible to you, use it. Don't let a staple become a luxury. Buy ahead when you can. Item number 11. Rice feels like it should be immune to price pressure. It's the most consumed grain on earth. There's so much of it. But what's happening to rice prices right now is worth paying close attention to. A combination of export restrictions from major producing countries, including limits that India implemented in 2023 and 2024 on several rice varieties that it has only partially eased, global weather disruptions affecting crops in Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines, and increased domestic demand in producing countries has structurally tightened the global rice market in ways that weren't true 5 years ago. For American consumers, this has mostly shown up as price increases on specialty rice varieties first, jasmine, basmati, sushi rice, but the pressure is now moving into long-grain white rice and brown rice as well. Store-brand 5-pound bags have moved. Name-brand bags have moved further. Here's the thing about rice that makes this particularly important for household stockpiling. White rice stored properly in airtight containers in a cool environment has a shelf life of 25 to 30 years. That is not a typo. Brown rice is shorter, about 6 to 12 months, because of its oil content. But white rice is one of the most shelf-stable foods that exists. If you have a 5-gallon bucket with a Gamma Seal lid, or even just good airtight storage containers, you can buy a 50-pound bag of long-grain white rice at a warehouse club, store it properly, and have meaningful food security at a price point that is going to look very smart in 12 months. This isn't panic buying. This is practical household management that your grandparents understood and that we've largely forgotten. Item number 12. Breakfast cereal. I want to talk about breakfast cereal specifically because it's a category where the shrinkflation has been almost cartoonishly aggressive, and yet somehow people keep buying without noticing. Major cereal brands, Kellogg's, General Mills, Post, have been reducing box sizes for years. The 12-ounce box became 10 ounces. The 18-ounce became 15. The family size box shrunk and kept the family size label anyway. At the same time, prices per box have continued to climb. The effective cost per ounce of name-brand breakfast cereal in early 2026 is dramatically higher than it was in 2020, even before adjusting for the size reductions. What I find frustrating about this category is that the marketing stays the same. The box still looks big. The mascots are still there. The claims on the front are still there. Nothing signals to you that there's meaningfully less food inside. I started buying cereal differently about a year ago. I stopped buying name-brand boxes at the grocery store almost entirely. I shifted to the Kirkland equivalent at Costco for the cereals they carry, the granola, the multigrain flakes. And for everything else, I started looking seriously at Aldi's house brand cereals, which have maintained their weights more honestly than the major brands while staying at a significantly lower price per ounce. The alternative that more people should be exploring is oats. A 50-ounce container of old-fashioned rolled oats at a reasonable price point gives you more fiber, more staying power, more protein per serving, and a longer shelf life than almost any boxed cereal on the market. It's not a perfect replacement for everything, but it covers a lot of ground. Know what you're paying per ounce. The front of the box is advertising. The nutrition panel and the net weight are facts. Item number 13. Cooking oils other than olive. I want to close with this one because it's the broadest and in some ways the most important for day-to-day cooking costs. Canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, avocado oil, all of them have been under price pressure, and the story behind each is slightly different, but the direction is the same. Canola and vegetable oil were significantly affected by the conflict in Ukraine, which is a major global supplier of sunflower oil. The displacement of sunflower oil onto canola and soy as substitutes drove up demand and prices across all 3 categories simultaneously. That pressure has eased somewhat but has not fully resolved. Canada's canola crop, the primary source for North American canola oil, has also faced weather-related volatility. Avocado oil has its own story. The avocado boom drove avocado oil into mainstream grocery stores as a health-positioned alternative to vegetable oils. Demand grew faster than supply could comfortably keep up with, and the category now commands a premium that it didn't used to. Quality control issues with adulterated avocado oil have also been a real problem. Studies found a significant portion of grocery store avocado oil was not pure, which adds complexity to buying in this space. When I rationalized my cooking oil situation at home, I landed on buying a large container of refined coconut oil at Costco and a large container of canola or vegetable blend for higher heat cooking. Both store well, both are versatile, and buying in the warehouse club format consistently beats grocery store per ounce pricing. Watch for sales on gallon jugs of vegetable and canola oil at warehouse clubs and restaurant supply stores. Price per ounce drops dramatically in larger formats, and the shelf life is long enough to make it worthwhile. This is one of those foundational cooking costs that affects everything you make. Getting it right is worth the effort. Let me tell you what the pattern is behind every single item I just walked you through. This is not random. This is not bad luck. What you're looking at is a convergence of real structural pressures. Climate volatility affecting harvests, global demand increases outpacing supply growth, energy and logistics costs that never fully came back down, and food manufacturers who are protecting their margins in the most invisible way they can, giving you less while keeping the appearance of the same. The people who are going to feel this the most are the ones who are still shopping the way they did in 2019. Buying what they need for the week, not paying attention to ounce weights, not comparing unit prices, not taking advantage of warehouse clubs and bulk pricing when it's available. You now know what to look for. You know which categories are under the most pressure. You know the smart moves. Buying in larger formats, using your freezer and your pantry, timing purchases around sales. This is not about panic. This is not about spending money you don't have. It's about being strategic with the money you do have. It's about buying on your schedule instead of the grocery store's schedule. Most people will notice all of this too late. They'll be standing in the checkout line 6 months from now wondering when everything got so expensive. You won't be that person. If this was useful to you, please subscribe right now. Hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need this information. And leave me a comment telling me which item surprised you the most. I read every single one. Next week, I'm going to go deep on the warehouse club strategy, how to actually shop Costco and Sam's Club to maximize your savings, what's worth buying in bulk and what's not, and a few things that most members never figure out. You're not going to want to miss that one. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. And I'll see you in the next video.